Cleanup's going well, considering the challenges. We were able to mobilize a large team, thanks to the input and the collaboration with JBS, Britannia Services and Metal Rock, who all were able to provide us with manual labourers, overseen by Brightside, who in turn are being supervised by Port Authority and Department of Environment. So we have a sizable contingent working on cleaning up the beaches.
Do you have any sort of estimate as to the extent of this spillage, sort of in terms of litres, or how far the damage has been seen?
No, we haven't been able to quantify it. It's the bad weather basically meant that as the oil was coming out of the ship, it was being broken up very quickly, which led to the creation of turbles when the lighter and heavier elements that make up fuel oil start separating. So that makes it very difficult to quantify what the amount that was entrapped and therefore released is actually was made up of.
Now, anyone who was down by the beach yesterday saw the weather, saw the extent of the waves, but it wasn't unprecedented or particularly extreme weather. So, in a sense, why were we caught unprepared by this, or was this sort of expected, and this is par for the course of what we expected to see happening?
I don't think we were caught unprepared at all. I mean, we've been monitoring the vessel throughout. We have been advising the public that when bad weather comes up, we will have to take away the oil booms because all they will do is get shut against the hull of the ship and create additional secondary contamination. We were monitoring the vessel yesterday. I think it's clear that what has happened to the aft section of the ship is as a consequence of the successful extraction of cargo. We've taken out 28,000 tons of cargo from the vessel. We only have 5,000 tons remaining inside. So that, unfortunately, has meant that the ship structure is lighter than it was in the previous storm. We weren't unprepared. We were monitoring. And we've said throughout that until the entire wreck is removed, the situation remains dynamic. Dynamic means that we have to monitor it. It can change very quickly, as happened yesterday. We have contingencies, but again, we have to realize that with the weather situation that we had yesterday, there is very little we can do out at sea. So the monitoring means exactly that. Monitoring, making sure that we see what is happening, and we can then forward plan for when we can actually tackle and carry out operations.
The operations that you mentioned, the ongoing operations, have been to remove the cargo from the ship. Could it not have been possible in any way to prioritize the removal of any parts of the piping that had fuel in it that might have then spilled out?
We have to understand when we say the keel duct, that is the very bottom of the vessel. So, and again, without not wanting to use my hands too much, but the vessel basically was completely broken up. We know that the sides of the hull on both sides had already been ruptured by the previous storm. So the only connection was at the very bottom, the hull keel. This is sitting on the seabed, so elements of the keel duct will have been covered by sand even. So it's not something that we can get divers into. And the keel duct is a very narrow compartment. It's not a huge space that you can get people physically into. So it's not something that we could tackle in any way. The expectation was, if we had faced more favorable weather, that this would have been tackled as part of the lifting and the cutting of the ship into two, which was one of the steps that we always anticipated would be required. What's happened is that nature has cut the vessel in two for us. Not ideal, because we would have done it in a much more controlled manner with additional anti-pollution containment measures in place. But that's what's happened, basically.
And very quickly, just before we head off to the next story, are we expecting beaches to be opened at any point this weekend, or expected to be closed?
It's a bit dynamic at the moment. We've made very good progress today. Again, we have to work around the tide. So works were finishing this afternoon just as high tide was arriving. My estimation would be that we had Catalan Bay pretty much about 80-90% cleaned. Similar picture for Sandy Bay. But there is an expectation that we might have some additional turbles washing up on the next high tide, which is happening right now, or will be happening throughout the night as well. That's why we have a team mobilized and ready to go tomorrow as from 8 o'clock to tackle these remaining tables. Once we start work tomorrow and in daylight, we will assess together with the Department of Environment. And of course, the moment we feel that it's safe to do so, we will open the beaches.